Guys, what happened here? Demetrius Andrade got stopped for the first time in his career by David Benavidez, and I was absolutely gutted watching this because Andrade did the exact one thing that I said in my pre-fight video he can't afford to do. I said his secret weapon, and this was the whole point of my video. Do not go and stand in front of in front of David Benavidez. And I thought that Andrade, who came across as a very humble fighter, very relaxed before the fight, I thought it would mean that he didn't do that. And unfortunately, that's exactly what he did, and it cost him the fight here. Because in round one, Benavidez, in my opinion, got the better of him, and he backed Andrade up, and he was able to use his coming forward and his body shots to win a very cagey round. But in round two and round three, Demetrius Andrade surprised a lot of people, including me while I was live streaming the fight, by the way in which he came forward and suddenly tried to take charge of the center of the ring and fight on the inside. And wouldn't you know it, he actually had success doing it. He was hitting Benavidez. It looked like he was actually rocking him slightly. And I was watching this going, okay, I said don't do this, but it's actually working. He's actually getting Benavidez hurt, or rather, he's getting his respect. He's winning these exchanges. He's got the faster hands on the inside. I mean, this is crazy. Don't do it, but it's working. And unfortunately, he got carried away. And in round four, the fight flipped on its head when Benavidez managed to start hurting Andrade because Andrade was standing in front of him and trading. And unfortunately for him, that is the last thing that he should have been doing against David Benavidez. And it's because of that round four, round five, and then round six, when he got stopped, went the way they did. For those first three rounds, it looked like Demetrius Andrade was going to be able to fight on the inside and actually potentially score a sensational upset by even getting Benavidez out of there in the first 6 rounds. But he really underestimated how tough and how powerful and how conditioned David Benavidez is, and how he can use those attributes to stand in front of you, trade with you, wear you down. And if you can't hurt him and there's so many punches coming back, then you end up with this result. Now, all of this doesn't take away from the fact that David Benavidez, in my opinion, is the most dangerous fighter at 168 pounds. I mean, it was a super impressive performance by a guy who, you saw his brother earlier on in the card, and he's tough. He's got strong legs. He can come forward. He can throw a vicious body attack. He can do all of these things. But David Benavidez, what makes him special, I think, is the fact that he's so calm. He's not an emotional guy, relatively speaking, because he does fight in a very aggressive style, but he's not an out-of-control character. But he also is so relentless and so well-conditioned, and he boxes very well, and he moves very well. That's the thing that makes him so dangerous. He's not a come-forward fighter who just walks straight through, gets hit with hundreds of shots, and tries to win through attrition. He can actually move, and he used that surprisingly well in rounds 4, 5, and 6 to actually cause Andrade problems. And once Andrade started to slow down, because Benavidez was targeting the body, and he was doing that effectively, and then Benavidez in round 4 slowed down noticeably. He had less power on his shots noticeably, and that's when the fight started to turn. But it was a combination of the fact that Demetrius Andrade made, in my opinion, a huge strategic error, and the fact that David Benavidez is one of the top fighters in the sport. Because the fight was 50-50 beforehand. I said I gave the narrow advantage to Andrade based on the fact that I thought if he boxed to a strict game plan, he would be able to use the fact that he has enough power, because this was the key. When he fought, or rather when Benavidez fought Caleb Plant, the problem that Caleb Plant had was that he didn't have the power, in my opinion, to sufficiently get David's respect enough to be able to make him wary. And as a result, David was able to dominate him on the points in the second half of that fight once he wore Caleb Plant down. But what I thought you might see from Demetrius here was a similar game plan to what Caleb Plant used in the first half of the fight, but be able to sustain it across the whole 12-round distance. And the reason why I thought he would have an advantage that Caleb Plant didn't have was because Andrade has more power, in my estimation. And you actually saw that. I think that was borne out in rounds 2 and 3, where he was actually able to get David's respect, but it came at a significant cost because he stood in front of him. He tried to exchange, and I said his lack of ego was going to be his secret weapon. Well, I think, unfortunately, he got carried away here. I don't know if that was the game plan going into the fight. I'd be very interested to hear what him and his team have, to say, whether that was the game plan and they were trying to actually stand in front of Benavidez and win the exchanges, or whether he got carried away with the success that he had in those first 2 rounds, or rather in the second and third round, and he basically went off the script and thought, hey, I'm going to get this guy out of here and I'm going to cause a huge shock. Now, make no mistake, if Benavidez had gotten stopped within the first 6 rounds, it would have been one of the performances of the year from Demetrius Andrade. And I don't know if that's what was going through his mind, and he thought, I'm going to get this guy out of here, and he went off of the plan. But whatever, or whether they were trying to stand in front of Benavidez and get him out of there as part of their pre-fight game plan. But whatever the reason, it was the wrong tactics. And I said that before the fight. And unfortunately for me, I was proven right in the fight itself. Even though I had predicted that Andrade would be able to win this one, unfortunately, he did it in completely the wrong way. He made the one big mistake, which beforehand I said he should not make, and he did it against an exceptionally talented fighter. Because make no mistake, David Benavidez is a special talent. There's a reason why so many people have been hyping him up for a number of years, and it's because he's been sparring against some of the top fighters in the world since he was 15. He will go in there and he will fight anyone, and he won't back down. He's calm, he's strong, he's well-conditioned. Everything about him is an elite fighter. But Demetrius Andrade could have won this fight. Make no mistake, he could have won this fight. He unfortunately will never get the chance to know exactly how he could have done in this particular fight if it had gone the full distance, because he made such a strategic error, and unfortunately it cost him the fight. Now, as for what happens now, the fight that needs to happen is David Benavidez against Canelo. Everyone wants that. Canelo excluded, perhaps, but Benavidez, the crowd, everybody in the arena seemed to want that fight. They were all cheering for it. Hopefully, that will happen in May when Canelo fights next on Cinco de Mayo, because that's going to be one of the fights of the year. But as for Demetrius Andrade, I hope he can come back from this and continue to have some of these big fights, because even though he lost this one, and even though he got knocked out, it's not the end of the world. We see fighters suffer knockout losses all of the time, and I hope that this fight can just be a little bit of a blip in his career, and maybe he needs to go back down to 160 pounds in this point. I don't know, but I hope we can continue to see him have some of these big fights. Where does Andrade go from here? Let me know your thoughts in the comments. I'm not 100% sure. The fight I would actually like to see him take would be against Jermall Charlo, truthfully, who we also saw in this same card. I think Jermall Charlo against Demetrius Andrade would be a very interesting fight. I think that would be another 50-50 one between two really good fighters, and I would like to see that one. If Andrade goes down to 160 pounds, he could fight Johnny Beck, but he's with Top Rank, so can that fight be made? I hope so. But Jermall Charlo, for me, is the one I'd like to see, because number one, he holds a belt at 160, which he presumably should have to defend at some point, and he's a big name, and both of these guys were on the same card. So the fight I would like to see for Demetrius Andrade would be if he drops back down to 160 pounds and fights Jermall Charlo for that belt. Now, that fight needs to happen because, number one, Charlo needs to defend his title, and number two, Demetrius Andrade would be a very good opponent. They're both big names relative to the other guys who are in that division. That's the fight I would like to see. Let me know what you guys think in the comments. But in my opinion, Demetrius Andrade against Jermall Charlo, that's what I would like to see. And then I hope, obviously, we get David Benavidez against Canelo. But thank you guys for watching. Let me know your thoughts on this fight in the video. A very impressive victory from David Benavidez. An unfortunate performance, in my opinion, from Demetrius Andrade, who's an excellent fighter, who I like very much, who I still like very much. But unfortunately, he did not get it done tonight. Let me know in the comments what you thought of this. I will catch you in the next video, and I will catch you next weekend as well on my live stream for Ryan Garcia against Oscar Duarte, and I hope to see a lot of you there.